On this Wednesday night, explosive emails released about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump.
Jeffrey Epstein is talking about, I think, pretty serious stuff, disturbing stuff.
What did the U.S. president really know about the convicted sex offender and when?
These emails prove absolutely nothing.
A major corruption investigation in Ukraine, the $100 million in kickbacks and resignation of top politicians. Grim prognosis.
I don't want to practice fast food medicine. My patients deserve better.
The new pay structure that has hundreds of Quebec doctors looking to leave the province. Plus, extending more than a Christmas tree branch. What's behind Nova Scotia's big present to Boston?
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. A massive new document dump is reigniting questions about U.S. President Donald Trump's ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Some of them suggesting Trump knew more about Epstein's abuse than he's admitted publicly. Among the more than 20,000 pages released by House Democrats and Republicans are emails between Epstein, who died in jail in 2019, and his associates. In one email to a journalist, Epstein, referring to Trump, wrote, "Of course, he knew about the girls." The documents were obtained by subpoena from the Epstein estate and have not been independently verified. Jackson Prosco has our top story on those emails and how the White House is reacting.
The thousands of emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate show the convicted sex offender mentioned President Donald Trump repeatedly.
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong.
In one 2011 email to Ghislaine Maxwell, his convicted co-conspirator, Epstein wrote, "I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump," adding that an unnamed victim spent hours at my house with him. Republicans claim that victim is Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most prominent survivors, who previously said she never witnessed any wrongdoing by Trump before her death by suicide. In another message from 2018, Epstein wrote, "I know how dirty Donald is."
It's clear that Donald Trump had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is talking about, I think, pretty serious stuff, disturbing stuff in these emails.
On social media, Trump called the latest revelations part of the Jeffrey Epstein hoax.
A lot of pressure now needs to be put on the Department of Justice to release more and more documents so the public can really understand exactly what the breadth and nature of what happened with the whole Epstein situation.
On Capitol Hill, that pressure is building. Epstein's survivors appeared for the swearing in of a newly elected Democratic representative, who becomes the final vote needed to order the release of the Epstein documents.
Justice cannot wait another day.
Meanwhile, scrutiny is building around the preferential treatment given to Ghislaine Maxwell. A whistleblower claims she's being waited on hand and foot by staff at the minimum security prison she was transferred to. She's said to be working on an application for presidential clemency, something Trump has not yet ruled out.
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to speak to the DOJ. I'll look at it.
There's little doubt the Epstein pressure is getting to the president. The White House acknowledged that Trump met privately with several Republicans who've joined with Democrats to support releasing the Epstein files. On social media, Trump wrote, "Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap." Donna?
All right, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thanks. House lawmakers are voting on a funding bill to end the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. Members return to Washington for the first time in nearly 2 months. The Republicans' narrow margin of control and strong opposition from most Democrats could result in a tight vote. Approval would clear the way for President Trump's final signature to end the 43-day shutdown. A major corruption scandal is rocking Ukraine, reaching deep inside President Volodymyr Zelensky's inner circle. Ukraine's energy minister and justice minister both resigned today after an investigation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau uncovered a $100 million kickback scheme tied to the state's nuclear power company. It is the most serious corruption scandal of Zelensky's presidency as Ukraine continues to press Western allies to support its war with Russia. Nathaniel Dove reports.
A scandal in Ukraine's government. Prime Minister Volodymyr Zelensky calling for the country's justice minister and energy minister to be dismissed. Shortly after, they both resigned. It's all because the country's anti-corruption police allege a $100 million U.S. kickback scheme from state energy firms. Zelensky calling for maximum transparency. Among the suspects, a former business associate of his. This Kyiv resident says some suffer while others line their pockets. The allegations of profiting off the energy sector come as Russia pummels Ukraine's power grid ahead of a cold winter.
It does suggest that there was a significant corruption and a significant problem behind the scenes.
McGill University's Maria Popova says, however disappointing, this proves safeguards are working.
The sovereignty of Ukraine, its territorial integrity, is one of our top priorities internationally.
The scandal coming the same day Canada's foreign minister announced new sanctions on Russia, on its drones, natural gas, sanction-evading shadow fleet of oil tankers, and cyber infrastructure, the latter to limit Russia's disruptions.
Most of these measures will likely have been previously sanctioned by other countries.
Sanctions expert Gonzalo Saiz says it brings Canada in line with allies, but that Canada must do more at home.
Canadian technology and high-priority items still make their way to Russia and are then fed into these drones that are deployed in the battlefield in Ukraine.
Popova says Ukraine will likely try to prove to allies very quickly that corruption faces severe penalties. And then, she says, attention will likely shift back to the front lines. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in British Columbia tonight as he prepares to announce the next on his list of projects of national interest. BC already has 2 of the approved projects, and according to sources, it's expected to be home to at least 1 more when Carney unveils the second phase of his major projects plan tomorrow. Mackenzie Gray breaks down what we know about the shortlist.
Before long flight to BC.
Prime Minister, what can we expect from the major projects office announcement tomorrow?
The Prime Minister tight-lipped on what he'll announce on Thursday, but sources have told Global News about some of the projects that will be added to the new major projects list. The biggest, the Silisms liquefied natural gas project in northern British Columbia, that would send over 20 billion cubic meters of LNG to Asia annually. The project has some Indigenous ownership, a key factor for the Liberals.
I think this is really true economic reconciliation because a number of First Nations, Inuits and Métis have asked us, we want to be part of these projects. We want to be a part of these projects.
A hydro project in Iqaluit will be added, along with the Sissons critical mineral mine in New Brunswick. The Crawford Nickel project in Ontario will also be included, pleasing Doug Ford. But the Ontario Premier wants even more from Ottawa.
It's great that they're doing the Crawford Nickel project. I love it. But let's get out of our way on everything else. Let's get out of our way when it comes to the Ring of Fire. Make sure we have one project, one process.
Ford could get his wish. Additional projects will also be added on Thursday. But the overall strategy, the wrong approach for the Conservatives, despite Pierre Poilievre's party voting for the Liberals' signature natural resources legislation.
The Liberals are like that pub that has that sign on the wall that says free beer tomorrow. And so you come back the next day and it still says free beer tomorrow. And you keep coming back day after day for the promise of free beer, and the price of beer continues to rise and rise and rise.
The LNG project, along with the Sissons mine, are essentially approved by the required governments, leading industry experts to say the newly formed office seems to be more about funding than fast-tracking, building on tax credits and cash offered in the budget.
It's clear to me that it needs to be the government, putting in actual money, coming in first with the funding, and hoping it crowds in private sector investment.
These won't be the last developments announced, Donna, with the Prime Minister having promised additional projects being added to the list before the Stanley Cup Finals in June.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thanks. The Alberta government and the oil and gas industry will be paying close attention to tomorrow's announcement. They have high hopes for a new pipeline to the West Coast, but no private investor has expressed interest in building it, and BC's Premier isn't interested either. As Heather Yourex-West reports, Alberta's Premier insists without a new pipeline, national unity is on the line.
Neither the Stamps nor the Elks will be playing in the big game Sunday, but Alberta is still hoping for a Grey Cup week win.
I think that there are a lot of people waiting with some cautious optimism, I would say, to see what's actually on that list.
A bitumen pipeline connecting Alberta to the northern BC coast did not make the federal government's first list of nation-building projects to be fast-tracked back in September. But on the eve of the second round of project announcements, several Trudeau-era regulatory hurdles remain.
The budget talked about removing the emissions cap if certain conditions were met, and those conditions haven't been met yet and may be a long ways off.
Industry watcher Richard Masson says no private company will be willing to invest in a new pipeline while the emissions cap and the northern BC oil tanker ban remains in effect, especially with Enbridge and Trans Mountain announcing recent plans to free up space in its existing oil pipelines.
They don't want to lose business to some phantom new pipeline, and so they're going to be trying to capture the production that is coming from producers. So yeah, it's not a favorable environment yet for a pipeline to be developed.
In a statement, the Alberta Premier's office said her government continues to work with Ottawa on a carve-out or overhaul of several damaging laws chasing private energy investment away. On Friday, after calling the topic boring, the Prime Minister said something was on the way.
Don't worry, we're on the pipeline stuff. Danielle's on line one. Don't worry, it's going to happen.
There are trillions of dollars of international investment crying out for the chance to build that pipeline without any government support. All they need is the federal government to stop blocking it.
Since the election, the usually frosty relations between Alberta and Ottawa have warmed, a condition subject to change if the Grey Cup Week announcements don't go Alberta's way. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
A controversial Quebec law, which the government says will modernize doctor compensation and improve health care, is driving some physicians out of that province. Hundreds of Quebec doctors have applied to work elsewhere over the adoption of Bill 2. Mike Armstrong explains what's in it and why many doctors say it imposes unrealistic demands and puts patients at risk.
Well, my resignation has been given as of November 1st.
Dr. Trevor Hennessy hit his breaking point. The head of anesthesiology in Quebec's Outaouais region, he doesn't have a next job yet, but he's applied to move to Ontario. Things have been tough for years, he says, but Quebec's new law reforming doctors' pay was too much.
The government won, they broke me, but my last attempt to try and bring some attention to our region was doing this publicly and rather vocally.
La motion est donc adoptée.
The Quebec government pushed through its controversial Bill 2 in an overnight sitting last month.
Okay.
It ties doctors' pay to patient quotas. A portion of their salary would depend on hitting targets. Doctors rallied over the weekend in Montreal. Well, Quebec's neighbours might be big winners from the turmoil. Ontario's College of Physicians and Surgeons says in just the last 3 weeks, it's had 285 doctors from Quebec apply to move to Ontario. New Brunswick's college says in the last month and a half, it's had 80 applications from Quebec doctors. That's about 13 times bigger than what it would normally get over that period.
Milk-wise.
Now, leaving isn't something they want to think about, but doctors at this Montreal pediatric clinic say they don't have a choice.
I don't want to practice fast food medicine. My patients deserve better, and so it's definitely on the table.
Even having to entertain that thought of abandoning the close to 3,000 patients that I follow is an affront to this profession, and it's an affront to me personally.
Losing doctors isn't going to help the government in the war of public opinion. A poll this week found more than half of Quebecers oppose the new law, and more than 70% say they're worried doctors will leave. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Canada's prison watchdog quits. Coming up, why he's fed up with federal prisoners not getting the mental health treatment they deserve. Ontario Provincial Police say they've made their largest ever seizure of fentanyl. Officers say a record 46 kilograms were seized with an estimated street value of $6.5 million. That's enough for about 460,000 street-level doses. Also seized was suspected cocaine and heroin, along with hydromorphone and oxycodone tablets, plus firearms, cash and jewelry. 2 men, one from Windsor, the other from Vancouver, face multiple drug charges. The correctional investigator of Canada is leaving the job 2 years early. In his scathing annual report, Ivan Zinger says weak policies, insufficient training, and a lack of accessible treatment are hindering efforts to provide proper mental health care to vulnerable prisoners. Jillian Piper reports on his findings and the impact.
I leave with a fair amount of frustrations.
After 8 years in the role, Canada's correctional investigator is quitting 2 years early, fed up with inaction.
If I would have been in a situation where the agency subject to my oversight would have been more responsive, maybe I would have stuck around.
Ivan Zinger recently released a report finding the federal correctional system is violating the human rights of vulnerable prisoners by not providing adequate health care.
These facilities are outdated, ill-equipped, and increasingly resemble warehouses for the mentally ill and for aging and medically vulnerable individuals.
Understaffing, a lack of medical training, and reduced funding all contribute to a system stretched thin, which, according to the investigator, can result in excessive punitive measures being taken against mentally ill prisoners, like pepper spraying those in crisis.
That's really the thing that's so sad about this report. It really does identify and highlight the most critical problems, but sadly, they're not new.
Women and Indigenous prisoners are particularly impacted, but all prisoners still have the right to timely care.
The issue here is that when you're sentenced to incarceration, you're not sentenced to the absence of health care.
Senator Kim Pate, a longtime advocate for prison reform, is questioning why successive governments of different political stripes have not made more substantive changes.
The government could do something different. It's clear that corrections there is not the impetus pushing on corrections.
Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangari says in a statement that he will work closely with the Office of the Correctional Investigator to address matters highlighted in the report, Donna, and acknowledges that there is more work to be done to improve the access and quality of mental health care within federal correctional institutions.
Okay, Jillian Piper in Ottawa, thank you. Mid-air disaster, a Turkish military plane crashes in Georgia. Ahead, the early clues in the investigation. Months after it opened, this bridge in southwest China partially collapsed, sending huge pieces of concrete plunging more than 600 meters into a gorge. Police had already closed the bridge after cracks started to appear on nearby slopes and roads. There are no reports of any deaths. There had been seismic activity in the area where the bridge connects Sichuan province with Tibet. A Turkish military plane has crashed, killing all 20 people on board. Cell phone video shows pieces of the plane falling to the ground moments after it broke up in midair. It's unclear what happened, but the black box has been recovered. The C-130 had taken off from Azerbaijan. It lost contact shortly after entering Georgia's airspace and did not issue a distress signal. A final farewell was held today for Jane Goodall, the world-renowned primatologist who redefined our understanding of chimpanzees and inspired generations to protect the planet. Among those honoring Goodall was her friend, actor Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes, she could be clear-eyed, even blunt about the greed and relentless consumption of our species. But beneath that fierce honesty was an unwavering faith that every voice matters, that we are all connected to the living world, and that each of us can make a difference.
Hundreds attended the service at the Washington National Cathedral to honor Goodall's life and legacy. Welcoming guests was an honor guard of about 20 therapy dogs. Despite all her work with chimps, Goodall said dogs were her favorite animal. Sprucing up Canada-U.S. relations next, the message from Boston's mayor as Nova Scotia sends a big gift south. The trend of Canadians shunning the U.S. as a travel destination is continuing. Statistics Canada reports the number of return flights from the U.S. by Canadian residents was down by 24% in October from the same month in 2024. Vehicle traffic at border crossings was down by even more, a drop of 30% from this time last year. The decline in Canadians traveling to the U.S. has been a gut punch, especially in cities and states that aren't aligned with the U.S. president's politics. The mayor of Boston was in Nova Scotia today, trying to bridge the divide while honoring a decades-old tradition. Heidi Petracek was there.
Merry Christmas! The festive event brings out a crowd of Nova Scotians to bid farewell to a special white spruce.
We're overwhelmed with everybody that's here and all the people. And yeah, it's great.
Had
it's a
no
wonderful
idea
thing.
it'd be turn out like this.
Every year, Nova Scotia gifts a massive tree to Boston, a thank you for the city's aid after the 1917 Halifax explosion. The tree then makes the trek to the Boston Common to be lit in a grand celebration. For the first time, Boston's mayor came up for the occasion, wielding a chainsaw while also cutting the Trump administration down to size.
Boston refuses to bow down to chaos and cruelty, even when it's coming from our own federal government.
Michelle Wu had worried this might not go ahead after all the tension caused by Trump's tariffs, but tradition, it seems, is stronger than trade troubles.
This friendship dates back over a century and will continue on long after a particular presidential administration or regime.
A relationship she hopes will draw reluctant Canadian travelers back to her city.
Boston is open for everyone. We are welcoming to all.
This is more important than ever because this represents a relationship between people.
Here it goes, Jay.
As the tree is gently tipped and loaded on a truck for its cross-border journey, you may wonder, is it tariff-free?
I believe so.
These branches of goodwill will be lit up in Boston December 4th. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Martinsbrook, Nova Scotia.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. For tonight's Your Canada, we're looking up at the spectacular colors in the night sky last night. The Northern Lights were putting on a show across the country. Right now, the sun is at the maximum phase of its 11-year activity cycle when its magnetic poles swap places, and that causes magnetic twists and tangles and coronal mass ejections, and the result is the Northern Lights. That's the scientific explanation. You can forget all that and just look up. The show should continue tonight. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.